Today we're going to be talking about diseases and all sorts of different kinds of diseases that you can get, as well as a few examples of them and all sorts of other things. So here we go. I want a whiteboard. There we go. Okay. So today's topic is types of diseases. And let's change this to a different color so that not everything is in red. So there's a few different kinds of diseases that we can get, and we could divide them into pretty much 4 sort of broader categories. Okay, so our first category is hereditary diseases. The second category is nutritional diseases. The third category is degenerative diseases. And the last category is transmissible diseases. Okay, so now that we know what they are pretty much called, now we can go into slightly more detail of each of them. So let's start. Let's start with hereditary diseases. These are any kind of disease that actually have genetics at its main cause. So this is something that has gone wrong or is different about the genetics of this person. So there are 2 different kinds when we speak about genetics. And the first kind is things that are passed on from your parents. This is things that have been running in the family for a while. That sort of diseases that you get. The other kind of genetic things that we get is things that happen by random chance. So while the baby was still forming in the womb, something went wrong somehow, and we end up with, by random chance, something extra happening. So let me give you some examples of these. So let's make this a different color. Let's go with blue. Okay, so the first example, and this is one that they have in your book, is called cystic fibrosis. So what cystic fibrosis is it is a genetic fault in the specific gene that causes the CFTR process, a protein. So CFTR protein. You don't need to know the protein or anything else. You will need to know some examples of these kinds of diseases. So what this means is this is essentially the protein which regulates how all of the fluids in your body are made. Your sweat, your digestive fluids, your mucus, any of those kinds of fluids are now being made differently due to the fact that there is a fault on this CFTR protein. So what I mean here is sweat, your digestive fluid, and your mucus Mucus is actually a good thing in most cases. It's supposed to keep the inside of your lungs nice and wet so that you can absorb oxygen more easily from the air. So what happens with someone that has cystic fibrosis is all of these, the sweat, the digestive fluid, the mucus, are a lot thicker than they should be in normal people. So all of these things tend to be thick and sometimes even gloopy, sort of just slightly more puddingish than what they're supposed to be. So what this means for people with cystic fibrosis is any kind of infections that happen due to the fact that there are moisture. So lung infections, airway infections, sore throats, all sorts of things like that have a much higher chance of happening due to the fact that the mucus that you have is a lot thicker. For babies, this means that they very often have trouble digesting milk, or with stomach pains, or they can't really easily actually pass things through, so poop, things like that. So this is the kind of symptoms that they would have. It is actually very, very possible to live with cystic fibrosis for a very, very long time in your life. You just need to then take a special care about what you eat, and about exactly being clean, not getting sick, things like that. So that's cystic fibrosis. Another kind of, let me actually change the color. I'm liking these colors. So another kind of hereditary disease is something that is known as hemophilia. So this name may seem very strange, but hemo is just the word that we use for anything related to blood. And philia is the word for loving. So this is a blood-loving sort of thing. But literally what this disease does is it is normally, you can get it from other ways as well, a fault in the X chromosome. So you very often get this in males. Wow, I am very well with the spelling today. So it's a problem on the X chromosome. And you can also get this due to some other kinds of things. But what this disease actually is it is a problem with a clotting factor in your blood. So what will happen, especially with babies and with adults, is they can bruise and bleed very, very easily. And they will bleed a lot from a very tiny cut. So this is literally the kind of disease where you can possibly die from a paper cut if you don't treat it well. So what people with hemophilia, depending upon the severity of the hemophilia, will have to do is firstly just take good care of themselves, and secondly they may have to actually go for injections with clotting factors. Or if they actually do get a cut that is bleeding a lot, they need to get to a doctor very quickly so that they can get injected with some clotting factors, just to clot up the cuts and so that they can actually start healing. So it's actually a fairly difficult disease to work with. But due to modern medicine actually having clotting factors that we can give to people, inject them with, this is a fairly easily treatable disease now. The last hereditary disease that I want to talk about is Down syndrome. So Down syndrome is caused by having an extra chromosome. Normally in humans, we've got a bunch of chromosome pairs. But on the 21st chromosome, if that one is copied an extra time, then you end up with Down syndrome. So it is this time not a kind of genetic disease that is passed on from parents. This is one that occurs mostly by random chance. So there are very, very many things that may cause Down syndrome, and it is not entirely very well understood exactly what causes Down syndrome. But what it is there is an extra chromosome, and this literally messes up all sorts of systems and things in your body. And it is not a very treatable kind of disease. So I actually have trouble calling this a disease due to the fact that it's more of a syndrome than a disease. So actually, hereditary diseases, I kind of want to put in quotation marks. Not all of these are necessarily diseases. Some of them are just some kind of fault in genetic makeup, and you just have to then survive with it. So, yeah, so this is hereditary diseases. So these are actually all kinds of diseases that is caused by either getting too much of something or too little of something. So let's divide it up into two categories over here. So we've got the too much side, and we have the too little side. In your books, they spend quite a lot of time talking about the too little side of things, especially what is known as Kwashiorkor, but we will get to those. So I've got a bunch of examples over here. The first one is called scurvy. So scurvy is characterized normally by your the gums in between your teeth, those little triangles in between your teeth, are starting to bleed. And scurvy was actually very, very common in the olden days among sailors. And the main reason for scurvy actually occurring is you have essentially very little or no vitamin C in your body. So it is a vitamin C deficiency. So the easiest way to prevent scurvy is just to eat some fruit and vegetables. What sailors ended up doing once they knew what caused scurvy and things like that is they would have jars of jam on the ship. And every day, everyone would just have a teaspoon of jam. And that would be enough vitamin C to prevent them from actually getting scurvy. So, right, I just wanted to write bleeding gums. Okay. The next one that your books talk about is called beriberi. So this is almost like scurvy, except that this is a vitamin B deficiency. And what this causes is it causes problems with your circulatory system. So your lungs, your heart, your blood, your arteries, all of those things start somehow malfunctioning. The symptoms vary, but it's literally very little vitamin B that you're getting in. So that's what beriberi is. Then we get something called rickets. There are so many kinds of nutritional diseases of the too little category. For every single vitamin that there is an associated disease for when you don't get any of it. So rickets gives you very, very brittle bones. So this should tell you that this is when you don't get any calcium or vitamin D or phosphates. So these three things are what you need in order to build up strong, healthy bones. So rickets is a disease that literally means you don't have the things you need to build strong bones. So you can have malformed bones, you can have very brittle bones, your bones can break very, very easily, as easy as it is to tear a piece of paper. It just depends. And then the last one that your books talk about in very, very much detail is something called Kwashiorkor. So very strange word, but this just means that you have a diet where you don't get any protein. So this is those typical pictures of starving kids from Africa, all over the world, the starving kid picture, where you've got this kid and it has very, very tiny, thin arms and legs, and you can see all of his ribs, but his tummy is all swollen and sort of sticking out. And this just means that he has a diet where he's getting lots of starch, but no protein. So he's got the energy, but he doesn't have the building blocks to actually make muscle. And that's what Kwashiorkor is. So now I'm going to talk about the too much side of nutritious diseases. So the first one is very, very easy, and this is any kind of poison. Substances that your body doesn't know what to do with, or that somehow disrupts the natural biological processes in your body, is essentially poison to your body, and it can be sort of classified as a nutritional disease. There's so many kinds of poisons. There's so many different effects that you can get from them. I'm just going to write poison there. It's on the too much side. If you get any of these sort of substances in, it is too much for your body. So, and your body can't handle it. And so you end up with that. Then we have obesity. So this is classified as a disease. And this just means that you have too much high energy foods. This could literally just mean that someone is eating too many calories throughout a day and they're not using up all of the calories. That's literally all it is. It could be someone who does lots of sports will eat a lot more calories than someone who sits at home on a couch all day. But either way, you need to be able to eat according to what your needs are. And if you don't, then you end up with obesity, which literally means you've got way too much fat in your body. It's actually a big problem because now your body has to sustain all of these numerous fat cells all over the body. And this can cause all sorts of other problems like blood clots, heart problems due to the fact that your heart now has to work harder to pump your blood all over your body. There are so many other health problems that come from obesity. So it is now classified as a disease. Then we have diabetes. Diabetes gets put on this side of the equation, mainly due to how it is named. Diabetes literally means you have too much sugar in your blood, which is actually a bit of a misnomer and a weird way of explaining it. So what happens, especially with insulin and diabetes, is insulin helps your body to take the sugars from your blood and pass it into your cells where it can be used. Sugar can't normally travel through the cell membrane. Insulin is sort of like a little gate that it makes. It sort of makes a gate in the wall of the cell so that sugar can come through, and then the insulin goes off and does the same thing for another cell again. So that is the problem with diabetes, is it's literally you don't have either enough, or there's something wrong with your insulin, or you have no insulin at all. So diabetes means you've got too much sugar in your blood, but what it actually means is you don't have enough sugar getting to your cells. That's the problem. So we have essentially two kinds of diabetes. They call them type 1 and type 2. And it's very easy to see the difference between them. So the first kind is where you have no insulin. your body has stopped making insulin for some reason. The only way to treat this is you will then have to inject insulin into your body in some way. Spelling is great today. So you have to inject insulin into your body in some kind of way. Okay, I had a question, and it is, from what age can you get diabetes? This depends upon the kind of diabetes, and it depends on lots and lots of outward factors. I used to know someone in school who had diabetes when she was 5. She had to inject herself with insulin ever since then. And it's quite possible that she had it even before then. So the thing is not when you can get diabetes, it's the type of diabetes and what has caused it. So let me get to this next little bit, and then I'll explain a bit more about the age you can get diabetes. So the other kind means there is something wrong with your insulin. So you've got defective insulin, or you don't have enough insulin. Okay, this one over here, the not enough insulin, is the one that tends to go hand in hand with obesity. So this one is very easily treatable just by medicine, taking certain kinds of tablets. One I can name is glucophage, is used very often to treat this kind of diabetes. You can also very easily treat it just by changing their diets, so that the foods they eat work with the insulin that they do have in order to give their body what they need in energy. So the age that you can get diabetes literally depends upon lots and lots of factors. This kind of diabetes, where you don't have enough insulin or your insulin is defective, tends to happen at a much later age. This one, when your body has no insulin, can literally be happening from birth. Or it can be that something happened to your pancreas or other glands in your body, and now you can't make any insulin anymore. So this one can happen from very, very young. This one, the defective insulin or the not enough insulin, can also happen from very young, but that tends to mean that there is something very, very wrong in your diet or in the things you eat. You're literally not eating what your body is needing. So I hope that helps with that one. So that is nutritional diseases. We've done the too littles and we've done the too muches. So degenerative diseases. Are, in general, something in your body that is starting to not work right anymore. So this will be things like having a heart attack, strokes, kidney failure, blood clots causing problems in your lungs, or anything like that. These are things caused normally just by getting old. All of the kinds of diseases that fall into this category are things that are associated in general with getting old. So Alzheimer's is a very well-known well-known kind of degenerative disease. Heart attacks, any kind of thing that happens with your body just due to the fact that your cells are not quite working as well as they should be. It depends. Cancer is also placed under here, but I'm going to put it into brackets because it depends on the kind of cancer. You can get kinds of blood cancer that actually don't have anything to do with degenerative diseases. What most tumorous cancers are, the things that cause growth, is literally your body or the cells in your body losing some of their reproductive function. So they don't cell divide quite as they should. And that causes sometimes cancerous cells, which means the cells divide a lot more than they should and causes cancerous growth. So that's degenerative diseases. I'm putting cancer in brackets because you do get cancers that are not caused just by getting old or by your cell function malfunctioning in some way. So the last kind of diseases is transmissible diseases. This is any kind of disease that you can carry over to someone else, or that can be carried over to you from something or someone else. So this is anything caused by viruses and bacteria. That's the exact thing that causes these diseases. These are things like the common cold, flu, malaria, AIDS, all of these kinds of things, tuberculosis, the Black Plague, all of these are caused by some kind of virus or bacteria that has invaded your body and that is now sort of stuck there. This also includes parasites in your body. By parasites, I mean things like ringworm or all of those kinds of things that are stuck in your body and is now causing your body to not function the way it should. So the transmissible diseases caused by viruses are in general preventable by using vaccinations. A lot of the very bad diseases have vaccines made to prevent them, and that is why kids have to get vaccinated when they're young. Bacterial diseases in general can be prevented just by staying clean, keeping your environment clean, washing your hands after you've gone to the bathroom, things like that. And that is pretty much all of the kinds of diseases. So let's see. Okay, we have a few more questions. So before we get kicked out, I will quickly try and answer them. Here's a question. What is the Black Plague? The Black Plague is a very widespread sickness that happened in Europe, especially during the Middle Ages. It was transferred by rats and a specific kind of flea on the rats. And it was a bacterial disease that was literally being spread around due to the fact that the people did not know what hygiene is, what personal hygiene is. They didn't bath as much as they should, all sorts of things like that. So that is pretty much what caused the Black Plague. There was a bunch of other causes. But essentially not being clean is what caused the Black Plague. It caused more than half of the people in Europe at that point in time to actually die. And it came back periodically, though it didn't actually cause quite as much death as the time when it was actually called the Black Plague, or the Black Death is its other name. So it is a kind of sickness, and it is pretty much almost entirely eradicated by now. There was a small resurgence about a year or so ago in New Zealand, I believe, but it didn't affect very many people. So another question was, can diabetes go away when you get older? This is very possible. Diabetes can indeed go away depending upon hormones and all sorts of things. For example, my sister had diabetes from when she was, I think, about 11 up to when she was about 16. And she literally only got diabetes due to the fact that her hormones in her body was doing absolutely wacky things and causing her body not to make enough insulin. So she ended up just having to go to doctors to get her hormones sorted out, and that caused the diabetes to essentially go away, that and following a proper diet. So it can go away when you get older, but again, it depends on the kind of diabetes. If you have the first kind where your body doesn't make any insulin at all, it's probably not going to go away when you're older.